Okay, so we're going to start. Oh, it's loud. So you guys have all seen the title slide for about 15 minutes, so we're just going to go ahead from there. So that's me, Carnalonage on Twitter. I work as a partner and principal consultant at Lars, and some of the other talks I've given in the past. Oh, we're going crazy.
So I'm Rob. That doesn't work? Yes, it does. There we go. All right, so I'm a pen tester at Rapid7. I've done some other talks, networking for pen testers, Metasploit Pro for Rapid7, Deep Magic, blah, 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 blah. That's me.
So the setup. We do things. There's probably a whole bunch of pen testers in here. I know a bunch of you. There's a million ways to do it. The way we do them may not be the way you do them, but we're going to give you some tips and tricks that make our lives easier, and hopefully now will make your lives easier.
So domain admin is usually the goal, right? Everybody wants to do it. They spend all their time going up to it, and it's never actually about anything but measuring dicks. It's 40 minutes, I got DA in 40 minutes. I got DA in an hour. I got DA in 1 day, right? And that's all it is. And you spend your time figuring out how to do that, not actually learning about the company.
So we need goals. I think there's been a good push for goal-oriented pen testing. I'm going to go ahead and say it that I think domain admin is a stupid goal. It's a stupid-ass goal, right? What's more important is identifying what makes a company money, what keeps their business in business, and going after that and showing the impact of me stealing that. Problems arise when actually figuring out what this is. Anybody that was in the PTS panel yesterday, there was a guy that was like, well, how do I find that out? How do the people know that? And a lot of times companies don't actually know that. It's really hard to get them to say, I make widget and there's the plans for widget, and if that was taken, then we'd be out of business. But you need to get them there.
So if the company knows, hey, I want to protect this is my actual stuff, but an attacker's going after something else, that's also something to, after your OS int portion, to talk to them about. Say, hey, yeah, this might make you money, but this is what an attacker would really want. Me? All right, so the majority of pen tests going on today look like this. Anybody disagree?
All right,
we
we're
run
done.
scanner. Huh?
We're done.
Woohoo!
All right, you get it. So, is this useful to anybody? Who's putting one of these in their reports? I got 500 shells. Yeah, you suck. It doesn't really mean anything to anybody.
Set 4.
That's what it is. Anybody disagree to that? Is that useful? Is saying I got 500 shells in your network actually showing anything useful to anybody?
What is that CSO going to say? It's shells.
Ooh, a black DOS box.
It says 500. What does that mean?
So is it working? So that some of the more high-profile guys that got owned lately, more recently, right? So Digitar out of business because they were so sucky at security, right? Everybody saw that Anti-Sec owned Texas police. I mean, put in the docs. We've been in there for 30 days reading your email. Y'all suck. And then, it's not a U.S.-only problem. Japan-heavy industries. Everyone else, if anyone saw the pastebin leak from, RSA employee 15666, there was, 50 companies that were, APT-owned, bad-owned. Here's the callback C2 domains. Y'all are fucked.
And that's Japan's heavy industries is their, government contractor. Those are the ones that make the big ships and the stuff for them. So it's not just some odd company in Japan. It's a worldwide problem.
So is it working? Is what we do normally day to day working? Anybody think it is? But we all do it.
Why?
Right?
Because we get paid.
I'll say it's mostly because that's what the clients push down on us. And so part of this talk is a re-education of those because we actually drive a lot of that, right? We help drive what the clients want. A lot of times they don't know what they want. So here, you need a pen test. This is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to own all your shit, and then I want to steal it and then show you what happened because I took it. Instead of just, here's a report with a bunch of black boxes on it.
Right. This is what you do in a kickoff call. Say, hey, hold up. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to try something else. I got it.
Got you on clear.
All right, so InfoSec Mafia, and Dave Kennedy presented this at B-Sides Atlanta and B-Sides Vegas. A little bit better graph at doing things, right? We're focusing on information gathering, intel gathering, footprinting, post-exploitation, and cleanup. A lot of people don't do that, but anybody see this as a better way of doing things? Vice versa. Hands. Yes. Woohoo! Yay. Yay. Is this how an attacker works? No? Yes? Well, no.
Minus the cleanup.
Does he do cleanup? Probably.
Actually, when they're done, yeah, they do. They're like, all right, I'm done later.
Yep. This is how an attack actually works. You do your prep work. And prep work's a big thing a lot of pen testers don't do, in my personal opinion, of the one tester I have. Right? So, you're pen testing, you do your prep work and analysis. Intel gathering, targeting, exploitation, post-exploitation, and keep on doing that circle until you get what you need or get what you want. And it's not, you don't see DA in there. There is no spoon there. You're not seeing where, like, hey, this is the end of the test, right?
So I stole this from Mandiant because it was pretty. But the big thing there to look at is the exfil part. And when talking about, hey, let's find that data, let's RAR it up, let's cab it up, exfil it out. How many people are doing any of that for their pen tests? Like 5.
Wait. Are you doing it or are you reporting on it? Or both?
Do you report on it when you do it?
Right. If
Mostly
you get
the same 5.
passwords.txt out, do you tell the client that you got passwords.txt out and how? Or just passwords.txt?
Couple. Okay. And so the rest of this talks about exfilling and then basically giving a report to the client of, hey, it took me to do X, Y, and Z to get out. Or, I busted data right on out, or I had to do HTTPS over 443 to get out and then got past your auth proxy or whatever else. This is how bad guys go after it, and I would argue that a lot of us don't go after it this way when we do pen tests. So enough of the slide or graphs and arrows. I think we need to change how we do things. Joe McCrae and I did a talk at BrewCon last week on capability-driven assessments. Basically, the point of that talk was let's not focus on vulnerabilities and you had 500 reds and 200 or 2,000 mediums. Let's talk about what level of attacker do I need to be to steal shit from your company. To do this, we need to focus more on post-exploitation, not getting caught, exfilling things, and in the end, showing impact to the client instead of just showing a bunch of shells. Because stealing something important is a lot better than dick measuring. Anybody disagree? Get the fuck out. So prep work. Who does prep work before they go after somebody?
Who has time?
Right. I do. So prep work is awesome. You should do it. In addition to doing your IG and all your other things, like just update your shit before you start going after stuff. Test your fish. Test your backdoor. Make sure you have script and screen ready to go. Have your click scripts. Like if you're going to be shoveling shells off to another place, have that ready to go ahead of time.
You can read.
Just one? No one else, two. No one else has ever lost a shell because you were dumb and didn't do something ahead of time.
Bullshit.
Fucking liars.
All right, so Screen is an awesome tool. It's built in Unix, Linux, whatever. It is essentially a virtual TTY, or virtual terminal. If you guys hadn't known that before, it's awesome. Use it. These are the commands to use it. Screen-S, uppercase S, because it's case sensitive. Your customer, then it's really easy, so you don't have to find the PID to reconnect back to it. Control A and then D detaches. So if you lose your SSH connection to your Dropbox or your box wherever you are, your cell doesn't die. Metasploit doesn't die. Your connection doesn't die. As long as that box is online, you're good. So ls lists all the screens. This is where you'd find the PID if you forgot to do the /s. XD connects back to it. Control A, multi-user on. Actually allows multiple users on that system to connect to that same screen. This is a security risk, but if you need to do it, you can. You just turn it right back off. Debian has it completely disabled all the way through the tree. So it is open source, so you recompile if you want to, but if you're using Ubuntu or Debian, even if you turn it on, it's not going to allow you to do it. You can read. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Wait, we are in Louisville.
All the time. What's that?
Oh.
What?
I said, wait, we are in Louisville.
This is true.
All right, so how many of you lost data because scrollback wasn't set to long enough? Bullshit. There we go.
There's a couple honest peoples here.
Script. It will save your ass. So it logs everything. So first you do your screen, and then you do script. That's just the mantra to get into when you're starting a test. Screen, then script. Script will just log it all to a text file. It actually allows you to replay it later or just look through it like a text file.
Yeah.
Simple.
Because generally you got what you needed on day one, you just didn't know it. So you can actually go back through and be like, there it is. Worst case, you got it for screenshots, right? You're like, there's no way you're getting to our F drive. No effing way. Well, actually, there's me LS in it right there, so I guess I'm done.
Right.
You see it?
Or finding the admin password in the group policy months later.
Yeah, like a good story is that we did a GP result / Z, and they set the local admin password with group policy. And we're like,
Yeah, and we'd taken like 2 weeks to try and privilege escalation up far enough that it was just bad.
Yeah. So, finding stuff to lay the smackdown on. So the guy's got his little money symbols in the goggles there. So we need to find the important shit. How do you guys do that? So my quick tangent, because I couldn't think of anywhere better, is passwords suck. I mean, suck.
Who thinks their organization has better passwords than most? Who thinks they don't have one of these in there?
Every pen test I've ever done since I started doing this, one of those worked.
And InfoSec Mafia has a horseshoe up his ass.
Yeah.
Because he'll just guess passwords out of the blue.
No, it's always one of those. He cheats. So remember that when you have a list of accounts or you have an account that you're trying to break into, try that. One of those works. It's always company 123. So while we're finding things, you want to do the obligatory nod to Nmap Scripts. Who uses Nmap Scripts while they're doing pen tests? A fair amount, but not really everyone. So the coolest ones actually don't fire off with that TAC A, which is like, find all the shit for me. They have all kinds of cool shit, like the Citrix one is awesome, doing NFS, AFP, SNMP, LDAP, all the HTTP stuff, and then there's coverage for pretty much every database out there. You know, database enumeration, database profiling, you do all kinds of stuff. So there's some overlap with Metasploit Auxiliary Modules, but frankly, the Nmap devs are fucking pulling away quickly in the race, man. There's definitely things you need that only exist in Nmap, so you need to have that as part of your arsenal.
And Egypt is right there if you want to blame him.
And then go see Ron's talk, because I think he's going to talk about how to do that, and it's awesome. So, may or may not be able to see this, but so this is kind of the output for the Citrix enum. And so when Citrix is misconfigured, it will actually list all the published applications. So in this case, it actually published a giant list of users as well. All right,
so you've seen it's coming from 443, right? Yay.
Also works over 1604. You know, and so remember, passwords suck. So I have a list of users. Now I take my password list, feed that back into the Citrix admin portal, yay burp, and you're going to knock somebody over almost every time. So Oracle, I did a bunch of stuff for Oracle and Metasploit, and I have to say that the stuff in Nmap's probably a lot more functional now. You don't have to compile some crazy Ruby DBI, do some magic dancing, and get it to work. They just added the ability to like run queries and do all kinds of really cool stuff with Oracle, so near and dear to my heart, so that's awesome. There's also been a lot of work on the LDAP searching inside of that, so if you can find an LDAP box that's null bind, you can actually pull tons of information. I mean, that's the whole domain or the whole Novella domain or whatever. That's all your users. Then go back to passwords suck. right? Getting the picture? Who uses Metasploit auxiliary modules?
You better raise your hand.
Every pen test for me. It handles all the BS for you, so as you're writing code to solve little tasks and things, it makes it so much easier. You don't have to dig with, what is Ruby's HTTP library?
Ask him.
I forget. It's we use in WXF. It gets used and it's horrible. But it handles all the different sockets and protocols for you. You know, you don't have to handle SSL. You can just be like, use SSL, and it will connect to SSL and do whatever you want. And then it recently got ported to a Ruby gem. I don't know if that guy's here, but thanks. If you don't want to use Metasploit for any reason, you can actually just write Ruby and just call, I think it's librex, and just use all that stuff.
So a lot of the modules and stuff that we're going to be releasing today have tables in them of some form or another. And I originally coded the whole thing by myself, figuring out the array sizes and all that. And then I found this cool search that allows you to look for tables, and then I found the Rex table-like function, and now I have 4 lines of code.
Solving problems. It's code working for you.
Use Rex.
So they're designed to really help with reconnaissance. That's what most of the auxiliary modules are for, and fuzzing. But typically when we're talking about finding, we're in the finding things. It's a bunch of scanners to look for various things. Simple format. So threads are important, but threads is per host. So doing one host with 50 threads still only does one thing, but if you got to do 50 hosts with 50 threads, you hit all of them at once. So that's kind of handy. And then, so the scanner stuff uses our hosts instead of our host. Takes all kinds of crazy Nmap type notation. So any way you want to pass the target list, you can. You can also take import Nmap script or Nmap output, NSS output, whatever, run some of the DB queries, and actually make yourself target lists based on that. And I think I did a blog post or 2 on doing that. And so you can actually pass it a file of your target list, which is handy.
Which will come in handy later.
So that's kind of what it looks like, just doing HTTP version. That's, getting started enumerating stuff. You can actually pass it, so the R host will do it against a class C, a class 16, whatever you want to do, set threads. And so now you're doing a /24, 10 hosts at a time versus 1. You guys have seen all that. And then I use it a lot to solve problems on the fly. So this is just some code I wrote. I wanted to be able to send one request and get as much information out of that as I could. So this does an options, and it says, oh, hey, WebDAV's enabled, and it's IS6, and if it's Oracle, it says it's Oracle, and if it's Nginx, and it's got one of the vulnerable versions of Nginx, it's like, oh, hey, that's Nginx, and it's probably vulnerable, so go check that out. And so sky's the limit on what you want to do. The whole point is you can solve problems with code instead of like, oh, well, that doesn't exist in Metasploit, I guess I can't check for that.
And you should have been in Egypt's training.
Because I think he did all that and showed you how to do it.
Did and doing tonight at 4. All right, exploitation. So the title of the slide was everything that the dirty little secrets that the pen testing class didn't teach you, right? So exploitation, we'll consider it covered.
Has anything new really happened in exploitation in the last 10 years? Just like some ROP tricks and some fucking kung fu. But for the most part, you send some shit at a service, it falls over, you get shell, or you send something to someone and they either give you creds or click a button and you get shell. Has anything changed lately? Cool. We'll call it covered. Open my email.
Pitiful. All right, post-exploitation. So I wrote, I essentially just made 3 Google Docs and said, hey, this is the post-exploitation docs. Come enter stuff in. And a lot of people started doing it. And it was awesome. So they are completely open source. Anybody can edit them as long as I don't get too many defacements. I've already had to deal with a couple. But that's the awesome thing about Google Docs is you can go back and revert. So they will be public as long as, forever, but the editing might change just depending on how much time I have on my hands. But there are for Linux, for Unix, for BSD, for OS X, for Windows. So if you don't know the commands or want to know, this is a list of things that people or pen testers have used, and people have added to them on what they do.
Yeah, so that was crowdsourced. So it was people smarter than us filling stuff out.
Yep. Definitely learned some new things.
Has anybody seen those? Anybody not seen those or been using them? Or who's been using them? Awesome. Yay.
Oh, and please, if you copy it, don't add people who are already contributors, because I get a copy of everyone that adds that. So I'm like, all you have to do is save as PDF, please. You're filling up my Google Docs.
Sounds like incentive.
Yeah, I change them. All right, what's the best persistent method?
Shout them out.
Shout them out.
What's your favorite?
Which one's the best one?
None.
You suck.
Nothing?
Nothing? Whatever works?
All right, I +1 for that. Everyone knows Rob and I are Metasploit fanboys, so we're kind of at the top of HTTPS interpreter and the pros persistent stuff.
Nothing could beat like HTTPS interpreter when you close down MSF console and then open it back up and you have shells coming back at you. It's awesome. Next. Okay.
That's better.
How many organizations, raise of hands, audit successful logons? 1,
2,
3.
handful. Not many.
Why not?
Because it's a lot of traffic. It's a lot of shit. That's why.
It's a lot of stuff to look through. What if a DA all of a sudden starts authenticating to 30 or 40 or all 18,000 systems on your boxes, on your network?
Would you notice that?
Bullshit.
One guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, anybody ever come across any of that gold?
Anyone think it's not on their file share at their company right now? No.
Handy. So, take that, go back one slide, rinse, rather.
Rather repeat.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, more on that later. Hooking your homies up. So, who's seen the run, meta, inject stuff? Who's using that? 2. And one of them is a developer, so that doesn't count. He's like, I wrote it. This is the bomb. If you need to kick off shells to your buddies, right? Because when Rob and I were at Rapid7, we tag team a lot of pen tests, and we're not sitting in the same location, and everything's going back. Because Screen is awesome, you're actually sitting on a colo somewhere, and so you need to actually send shells back to other places. Run this. You can pick whatever payload you want and send it to whatever port and IP you want, and injects into memory, and you get your shell. So super handy.
Not dropping binaries, just starting Notepad, injecting into it, go.
Yeah. So handy. And before you start doing weird, crazy stuff, you may want to kick yourself a second shell. So
always kick
when that
yourself
thing
a
locks
second
up or you Control-C it, and then Metasploit's like, I'm done with that. You actually have another one hanging out waiting for you to do stuff. And then multi-user functionality. Anybody use Armitage for using the multi-user stuff? I think Raphael's talking tomorrow on using that. You can have multiple clients connecting to one Metasploit instance, and now you guys are essentially multi-using a session. And it's been perfectly handled in Pro, so go buy it. It's awesome.
Perfectly? Yeah, sorry.
It's pretty good.
So one thing you can do if you are good at Ruby or even decent at Ruby, is strip down multi-meta inject, just a cool trick that I do. Strip down multi-meta inject just to be exactly where you want to send stuff. So have another colo somewhere with screen and script going. And as soon as you send your fish off, the first jump point or first callback that it goes there, have an auto run script to point at the other one for multi-meta inject. That way, as soon as you get shells, it pops it over to another place. And if they block it within 7 minutes, oh well, I still got my shells.
Oh, I blocked you. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. I've actually had an organization block my first IP in 7 minutes, which was awesome.
Good on them.
So
I went fast. Finding stuff once you're inside.
Nmap. Anyone upload Nmap to a target? Okay. All right. So you can go over there. So ping, great, right? It works. It's built in. It only does one host at a time. Nessus, Nexpose, you can run them through stuff, right? Takes forever. Angry IP Scanner, nod to the old school. No. All right, NetView, whack domain.
Everybody know what that does?
Does anyone not know what that does? See?
That lists. So what that does is it lists the host names for the domain that you're in. Pretty handy, right? So I'm on a box. I want to see what other hosts are around me. So some other tools that may be a tad bit better because they're either on the box or they're Windows binaries, and no one complains when you put Windows binaries on Windows. OSQL. So anybody used OSQL? Couple. So that list, that -L will give you all the SQL servers it knows about. That's pretty handy because one of those is going to be SA no password, always is.
Bad passwords.
You can also use it to actually connect to databases, and if the XP command shell is enabled, you can do all that. Handy. It's in a Microsoft binary, so it's not at all upset when you put it on there. Anybody use dsquery, dsget?
Boo.
Couple guys. It's freaking annoying.
80
So a lot of
fine
time,
for the win.
Yeah, a lot of times you've got to do your dsquery and actually pipe that into dsget to actually get the data out, and it can get a little complex if you're looking for something weird. So the first two lines there show basically dsquery computer limit 0 is net view whack domain. Same thing for dsquery user limit is net user whack domain. And then below that, if there's other domains in the forest, you can actually start passing. Hey, I want to know about domain number 2 there in the DC in the DC categories.
The other thing is that dsquery and dsget use Active Directory, and AD-find, and NetView and NetUser use the master browser. So you might get different results.
I'll let you talk about Joeware.
All right, Joeware, awesome. It's been used as admin tools forever, and they're binaries that will never get flagged by AV. And AD-find happens to be a dead simple tool that is like steroids of dsquery and dsget. Download it, use it.
Big shout out to Chris Nickerson for telling me about NL test. Anybody use this? This is pimp because it's like, oh, I can't do it that way, so let me try it this way. Oh, that didn't work. No, let me try this. This thing will try as hard as it can to get the data for you, like every time.
And it's built in.
It's built in for, I think, XP Plus, and handy. Use it.
What if command.exe is disabled? Anybody ever run into command.exe being disabled on a test?
Oh, quite a few.
We have.
That sucked.
I wonder what that does.
Yeah, that was kind of the impetus for a lot of this code, too. Was stuff like this.
Yeah. Dropping binaries is bad, right? We don't. That just increases our cleanup time. Anything that we have to drop on a system, we have to clean it up. Anything that outputs, we have to clean it up. Damn you, forensics people. All right. Except for the stuff that blends in, like AD-find and dsquery and dsget, those you can usually do away with. All right. The meat of the talk. So, anyone not know what Railgun is? All right. So All right. So Patrick HVE, whoever he or she actually is, submitted this to the Metasploit project 2009-ish, and it is a direct access to the Windows API. Anyone think that the Windows API can not do something? Right. So the Windows API has infinite possibilities, whereas Meterpreter has just the possibilities that people have programmed in. Well, we're going to be releasing a lot more of that. So, demo of route, ARP table, and TCP table. Anyone ever use route in Meterpreter?
All the time.
Doesn't give you everything. So, that's what route gives just by running route, and this is my route table, which is going to be released. So, in the protocol location, you can see that, not in this example, but it might show RIP or BGP or any other type of, or if it's static, gives you a better sense of where your targets are. If there's a static route for a specific location and it might be going over some kind of VPN or whatever, you might want to target that first. Sorry, I don't have a screenshot for this, but it's an ARP table. Anyone have to drop to a shell just to run ARP table or ARP-A before? Yeah.
All the time.
So this will be released. Sorry, no screenshot. TCP table. What about a netstat? How awesome is a netstat? Great.
Is there a netstat in Meterpreter?
No, there's not. Now there is. Well, it's not in trunk, and once I submit it, you have to wait about 4 years until it gets actually pushed.
Egypt's fault.
I'll leave this over. But you can start seeing like, okay, this thing's listed on 3389, 3306. Oh, 3306 is fun. And you keep on going down the list and you start getting more targets. If you're on a DMZ, you say, hey, this host is actually talking to something on a different IP space. Maybe we should target that as well. A lot of the Metasploit tools are based on IP or IP ranges. Like we just talked about how it takes all kinds of different IP ranges. Most organizations don't stick in one IP range. There was actually an organization I just did who gave me 8 class 16s or /16s and said, here's our IP range. I'm like, you use all of those? No, we have about 900 hosts.
It's intermingled because I don't want to tell you where everything is.
Right.
Or I don't know.
And NetDiscovery. I don't want to release this one.
Too late.
All right. So NetDiscovery is like NetView on steroids. Anyone ever run NetView and just get a host name and like, oh crap, now I have to ping them to find out where they are. All right, well, OSQL, it tells you where all the SQL databases are. Great, cool. I got to upload something.
I still got to ping them and get the IP.
Got to ping them. Unix hosts. Wait, Novell hosts. How do I find those? NetDiscovery lets you do it. We'll describe domain discovery in a bit, but this is what NetDiscovery looks like. So, you set a type. If you do an info, if you're in Egypt's class and you learn the whole cool help command or info command, this will actually tell you what types I support in this. You type set session. Ooh, there it is. Run. It gives you IP address, host name, version, which doesn't actually exist in NetView, but it does come back in the Windows API, which I don't understand. It's like Microsoft directly limiting you, what you can see. And then description. So I've actually seen a workstation that said, password reset for user on this workstation. Here's the password. All right, so cool, you get the IP ranges. Does this look like an IP range that you can scan easily? No, not at all. What's this, though? Anyone have any idea what that is? What? Those numbers right there. So Microsoft does this awesome thing where if you have, for each Active Directory service that you have, SQL, LDAP, any service that you have, they add a number or a widget to it, basically. It's a lot more than just adding one, but you get the sense. So each service that you have, and more services you have, the bigger number you have. So what do you think I want to target? The one with the biggest number. Easy, right? So in NetDiscovery, if you run this, go all the way down. At the very bottom, it has the biggest number with the IP address and where you want to target. Awesome, right? Cool. So that's NetDiscovery. In a nutshell, you can set it to SQL, Novell. It's real simple.
So the cool thing is, and I didn't know this until recently, you can use post modules as like an auxiliary module. And so you can actually, when you have a bunch of sessions, back to your root of the command and just set session, and you can actually tell the session of all the post modules you wanted to run against. That's pretty badass.
All right, so quick tangent. NetDiscovery takes a while because it's looking up all the hosts and finding all that information about it. So if it comes back and says found 13,000 systems, you better have kicked yourself another shell because you're going to be waiting. All right. So mini NetDiscovery is dig. So if you come back and you run OSQL and you just want to look up one host or found that you had a session on one host and it dropped for whatever reason, but you got the local admin and you want to get back on it, you can look it up real easy with dig. It does not have all the functionalities of dig. Just looks up a host. Don't.
Just ping. But a lot of times I'll remember that, the DC is Mars, and I just don't remember the IP address. So
right.
That's kind of handy to be like, oh, instead of like dropping back down and pinging it, you can just do it here without dropping to a command shell.
Right. And this will do, just like ping, it'll use all of the services, NetBIOS, DNS, Etsy host file, all of those services to find that IP address. And domain discovery. So domain discovery, I ran into a lot of tests where people were putting their blinders on and sticking to a single domain. When in this instance, there were 11 domains to hit. That's a lot, right? And I only knew about the one at the bottom. until I ran this. And then I'm like, oh, yay. So you start looking at and getting a bigger picture of the organization, not just that IP range that you initially got your access to, or not just that one domain that you're into. There might be better stuff elsewhere. So domain discovery shows you all the domains, it finds all the domains, and then shows you the domain controllers for each domain. Now, it doesn't ping them, because I wanted this to go a lot faster, but it does give you the host name, so you can use dig to find them. Cool, not cool? Anything?
Useful? A couple people are still with.
I think NetDiscovery is pretty pin. All right, user discovery.
So these are the old reliables for finding people to F with. Looking for your domain admins. So look for the top ones, like, so show me the domain admins for the domain I'm in. You can also pass it for other domains that you know about. Finding local admins, see if they put the domain user you're usually running as a local admin. And then then the bottom two we'll talk about kind of interrogating those users specifically. So I want to know, hey, I got on Susie Q's as the user for the fish. Who is she in the domain? I need to know what they are, or I need to find out what other groups people are in. So
right. So the other thing you want to add to this is enterprise admins. Don't forget that there might be a forest out there of Active Directory domains.
And so that second one's useful to see who's sharing, the backup account across multiple domains. So if it's service, backup, and it's running as service backup on all 11 domains, that's kind of useful to know. So a better way, if you're in Linux land, is who uses RPC client to do stuff? Yeah, check that out, because it does a lot of stuff.
This is the complete script right here. That's it.
Yeah, it's got basically all the functionality of NetView and NL tests and a whole bunch of other things built in. And so we actually came across a pen test where the master browser was exposed to the internet for some weird reason. We found out later it was somewhat legitimate, but it wasn't remotely exploitable, which was also shocking. But what did lead us to be able to enumerate out the whole domain using RPC client, got the target list, right, and then, because passwords suck, had the whole user list and eventually found, I think it was HR or something, and busted in. So use it. It's got a lot of options. Like, you could probably do 2 talks of all the options that RPC client does.
All the useful ones too.
Yeah, so check it out.
Anyone getting a gist of how passwords suck? All right, user discovery, DisplaySessions, and Peter's PVE find AD user. These are different ways of finding specific users. User discovery will find it is just a net user, but it gives a lot more information. I don't have a screenshot in here, one that I could sanitize enough, but so user discovery will show you not only just the users. Again, this is Windows API coming back with more information that it doesn't show you. When the password was last set, anyone think that's useful? Right? Yeah. The description for the user, or the comment for the user, where a comment says, password changed to change me at this date. Or how about how many tries the password has? So if you want to brute force that user, you have 3 left, 2 left, 1 left, and you can keep checking it. That way you never lock out the user, and you got it. So user discovery does all of that information and has much more targeting. So you can do all of the users or just a couple. Explain DisplaySessions. Okay, I will. No, sir. DisplaySessions. This is awesome. So Humble Dresser, I don't know if he's in here or not, he put me onto this specific Windows API call. This shows all the sessions that are currently on that Windows box. So if they've connected via a file share or RDP or anything, any kind of session, it'll show up here, and how long they've been idle. So is logged in from that IP. So what if that was a domain admin or the HR guy or whoever I'm really targeting? Now I find out where he is on the domain, so I don't have to go searching for him, right? I know exactly what IP he's coming from, and I can target that specific IP. Pretty cool, huh? It's awesome what Windows API can give you. Creating zombies. All right. So what if you're What if the user that you wanted to dump creds for is no longer on the system, or you don't have access to that system that the guy had or was logged into anymore? Well, you can just recreate him. You can make him alive again, create a zombie out of him. Create process with logon and logon user. Create process with logon creates a process on the system with the username and password that you have for him. So it creates notepad.exe with that username and password. You migrate into it, and now you are that user and can use the credential dumpers that Illwill and all those guys have created, because it has to use the user that's logged in. Logon user does the same thing, but it doesn't create a process. You can't migrate into it. So all you have to do is steal a token, because it creates the token. Now, that's if you have a password, though. Well, WCE, anyone know what WCE does? It dumps the network hashes in LM and NTLM format, right? So you have a hash. But
Crash your session.
Crashes a session.
When it works.
Okay, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Always have a separate...
Kick yourself another shell.
Kick yourself another shell. Run hash 32 and run hash 64. Awesome tools that PSExec as that user. So you run hash 32, space the user, space the hash, whatever you want to run, notepad.exe, and now without having the password, you have notepad.exe running as that user, migrate into it, game over.
So is that useful? Right.
Pretty freaking cool.
There's a lot of times where you might want to be able to not necessarily RDP into a box as a user, because now they may be logging that, or someone's maybe a little more security mature that may send off some things like, why did this person log into that box? They don't do that. But now you can just create a process as that user, migrate into that process, then I can start net using around the domain and doing other things as that user. So, right? So I got a couple nods. Some people are like, oh man, that's awesome. That sure would be handy. So rather than like trolling the domain trying to find where that guy's logged into, I'm just going to start a process as that user, and I'm done. I don't can save myself a bunch of time. So.
Anyone think that's cool? Yeah. All right. This is annoying. This was in Metasploit. This option has been in Metasploit since I can find. Like, I looked through the SVN all the way back as far as I could and can't figure out when this was added. The -M to execute. This runs the executable in memory. So I specify that it's in my bins directory on my host. Bins directory on my host. What it does is creates Notepad or an execute or a binary or runs a process on the remote system, then creates it suspended, then rewrites everything on the system or in that memory space with the binary that you have, and then starts it again. So not dropping a binary, and it runs it. And it's been in Metasploit forever. So annoying. But
That's awesome.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that's awesome.
So WC works occasionally when you do this. LSA secrets dump from Nersoft works every single time. There's a bunch of binaries that you can do this with. I have not been successful at sending arguments to it, though, because it's rewriting the whole process. He's just sitting there with his mouth wide open. It's like he didn't know about it either. The guy who runs the project didn't know about it.
Sneaky Steven Fuhrer.
All right. Privilege escalation. Yep.
Sorry. We were talking for so long, I forgot. Sorry. So Git system, who uses that? Does everyone know that it tries a whole bunch of stuff when you just type Git system? Yeah, that could be bad. So Git system -1 is much better if you know they're an admin. Post modules, so inside of the handy thing with post modules is made it a lot easier to do post exploitation stuff. There's a handful of post exploitation modules for going from user to system.
The keyboard layout one is badass. If you want to read some really awesome code, it's by JDuck. It was really well done.
You know, same thing of like send yourself another shell applies, because if you've messed up your options for setting up your post modules, you could really easily like lose it. So have a spare before you start mucking with any post exploitation or privilege escalation stuff. And so Core and Canvas ship with actually a lot more functionality there. And I'm big sad face to say that, but it's the reality that we live in, that those two tools ship with a lot more options for, finding that random third-party code that's running on that box that will let you go from user to system and finish effing stuff up. Yeah, so back to get system. When you just do get system without, and it tries to do kit trap, and then you're looking like that on the other end, not good. So get
Explain
system,
that.
tech one.
Explain that to a customer.
Just explain that was the only shell I had, and now I'm sucking. Oh, your box may have crashed. Here, run this. So if you really want to like punch someone in the face with something heavy and you're really sucking, you could just drop a user from a domain. Any user can drop someone from the domain, but it takes an admin to put it back.
There's a computer. You can drop a computer.
Is anybody seeing the usefulness in that? Right, I'm on the box, I'm key logging when the guy logs in to put the user. So be careful though, because I've been some places where they've locked the admin account, and so if you were to do that, it's going to be a real pain in the ass for them to actually put that box back on.
Or if they're remote in, run the Nmap sessions and find out what host they're coming from.
So that's why there's a question mark next to better. I don't really recommend that unless you're like really, really sucking. It's better to just do this.
Or just ask for higher privileges. Like that. So I'm releasing the module. It's just ask for privilege escalation. All it does is prompt a USA prompt and say, hey, can I have admin privs?
And so he's Ninja, and he's got it to where it's running Microsoft stuff to ask for that, so that code is signed.
Yes. Or you can do task lists and find where those other users are. If you're a local admin, and this is where script and the preparation comes in handy. If you are a local admin and you start doing a task list in a for loop, hold on, step back real quick. Notice this isn't a IP list that I'm doing a for loop on. It's a net view, right? So I'm hitting every domain or every computer this is. I don't care what the IP is. It automatically does the lookup for it. So running a task list on every single system on that domain. Now I find where that, and this will give a user, with the /v, it gives the user who is running that process. So all I do is search through my script, find out where my domain admin or that HR person or that gadget maker is.
Code developer 1.
Okay, code developer 1, and game over. That's a really short script to run. It's fun.
All right, so we ranted at the beginning about finding stuff that actually matters. We've got 10 minutes or so. We're good. So searching for gold, like just start using Windows tools to look for things. Rob's releasing list drives, which will tell you all the available shares and drives that are on a system. So useful. I don't want to guess A:, wait, B:, yeah, that sucks. It's much easier just to do that. And then we kind of go back through and start using dir or find string, or if you want to get Ninja, you can write some PowerShell to like start recursively searching all this stuff for you. Find string's awesome because it just spits it out nice and pretty for you. So get a list of useful things. Like so, if you know the project name that you're looking for, now you can start enumerating through the domain, looking for widget project X for 2012, or if you're just trying to move around and escalate, start looking for password, because that's how I find my passwords.txt.
Or network layout.
Yeah. Visio diagrams, PCF files. Start looking for VPN creds and VPN certificates so you can start getting in later.
Or badge machines.
Yeah. I mean, we use that. We actually tried to hack up our badges, so I couldn't. We had to stay late one night, and instead of like getting permission, we just hacked the badge to stay late. But it involved me finding the badge person, finding the badge documentation, finding all that, and going from there. So we used that. I use this all the time.
All right, so get links, get Firefox creds, get Pigeon creds. Actually, there's a better way to do Firefox creds. It downloads some stuff for you, but it doesn't really download everything. What you want to do is find their profile, download their complete profile. It's not that big. It doesn't have too much in it. And what you do is get Portable Firefox, throw that profile into Portable Firefox, open up Portable Firefox, and guess what you get? Gmail's logged in.
Yeah. Do you show passwords and everything's there?
Yeah. So that's actually a test that we were doing, and the guy had his passwords for like everything. For the IDS and IPS, he had his password saved in Firefox. Thank you. Remove alert. So big shout out to Illwill, KX499, and the Light Cosign for doing all the work on the credential stuff from Interpreter. It's amazing stuff. You guys should check it out.
Before you had to like push up like the Nearsoft tools to get the IE dumper. That's way better. And SharePoint, man, SharePoint is like the end of the rainbow, like big time. You want it, it's in SharePoint indexed. We found router configs, alarm codes, everything. Everything lives in SharePoint. If they've got it, start searching that thing. And then internet.company.com, that's going to have, hey, here's how you set up the VPN, here's the cert, here, just use your, like, everything you need to, like, get in later will be hanging out there to get all the users up to speed or the bad guys. So other good things to use. So did anybody catch the OpenDLP talk at DEF CON? One person. A couple people. That's awesome. So he talked about using hashes to push out OpenDLP agents across the enterprise and then using the DLP stuff to search for useful stuff. Right? Because the stuff you want is the stuff OpenDLP is looking for to make sure it's not leaving. Right? So it's awesome. If you're in database land, Fiction up here in the front wrote an awesome database pillager tool. Check it out. If you need to find the gold in the databases, that's the tool for doing that. Search and Interpreter is pretty pimp because it will use, if Windows searching indexing is on, it will even search cool things like Outlook for passwords.
You can also search different drives, share drives. So once you do a list drives, you can tell it, hey, search this drive. So search the network share for password.
This is a tiny bit useful. And so if you got a lot of stuff and you have some time, you know, assuming we don't have to do all this in 1 hour, just DIRS that stuff off to a text file, write it back down, and then bring it back, and then look for it offline later. But you know, just do what works for you.
Pivoting. All right, so port forwarding. Everybody knows how port forwarding works? Yeah? All right, you forward a port. But yeah. So Interpreter has port forwarding built into it. Route is there. It routes all the modules inside of Metasploit through it. So if you have an interpreter shell, PHP interpreter, awesome. Egypt wrote it. Supports route, works. Port forward SOX4A module through interpreter session. So anything that supports SOX or supports it via proxy change, you can send it through. And the Pro via VPN pivot is probably the easiest VPN pivot VPN you'll ever set up. You hit VPN pivot and it does it, and you're done. I use it to administer my mom's system. Port proxy, all right, built into Windows. Since Windows had the firewall, it has the ability to proxy ports, or port forward, in other words. So all you do is add this line in, and guess what happens? Anything coming to port 25 automatically gets routed to 192.168.0.100 or an external host over 80. Guess what? Where this doesn't show up? Netstat. You can't see it. It's not a listening host. It's just the firewall doing port forwarding. So if you have all your interpreter sessions going to this one host that you had, and you don't have persistence on it anymore, or you pulled off of it so that Forensics can't find you, guess what's still happening? You're still getting shells through it. It's still doing your work for you without any binary on that system at all. Any shell on the system at all. The firewall is doing it for you. Thank you very much. And back to legitimate access. Persistence. Microsoft has an app for that. All you do is look through auto runs and say, hey, I can put my stuff there or there or there. It's like the rainbow bright of persistence methods. But these won't show up there. Smart Locker, or AKA Lockout Recorder, essentially it's a keylogger that only logs logins, which is one of my favorite pieces of code. fxsst.dll. This was an awesome find by Mandiant, and like a couple weeks after Mandiant wrote about it, I wrote about it on how to use it in Metasploit. So Metasploit can dump DLL like payloads in DLL format, and Explorer.exe loads fxsst.dll by default every time someone logs in. So guess what that does? Loads my shell every time someone logs in. And there's no crash in it. There's no nothing. And getting rid of it is annoying because you have to kill Explorer.exe while keeping things going and remove it. How many admins know how to kill Explorer.exe and remove a file all in one swing? Yeah, annoying. GPO dropper. I've had this for a while. HB Gary stole it from me. Assholes. They posted it first, so they get the credit. GPO, you can essentially set a local GPO setting just by dropping a file. So you drop a file in a specific location, and all it does is sets a GPO so that when someone logs in or the system starts up, it runs something. Awesome. You don't ever want to do, well, for suggestion, you don't ever want to do it in startup because by having that access already, you should have the hashes so you can get to that level anytime you want, and log on happens a lot faster or more often, so you can ps-exec up if you need to. So getting those users is more important. And the IPv6 dropper that I demoed on Hack5 a couple of months back, which essentially is IPv6 tunneling over Teredo that allows you to have it's awesome. The IPv6 IP is given to you by Microsoft and traverses NAT. So you connect to it directly over the internet, and you can have a bind shell that you can connect to anytime you want.
So that's still better.
Woohoo!
I don't know if we have time for questions. I'm going to look at the red shirt guy. He says no.
No time for questions.
We'll be right outside the doors if someone has questions or want to call me names.